with the incredible duo Zachary Fink and Alyssa Fedele. These two are husband and wife as well. We've got a power duo over here. And I'm so excited to talk to both of you about your new documentary called Any Problem Is No Problem. I know that you're both in the wonderful setup for the AMDOCS Film Festival right now, and you're getting geared up and ready for your premiere this evening. But I would love to just kind of jump right into why you decided to embark on creating a documentary that evolves around crypto.
Yeah, we were really curious to look beyond the headlines about crypto, which tend to focus on speculative bubbles and financial scams, and really into the personal stories of the young entrepreneurs who are building in this space. And I think sometimes in the news media, like crypto is represented just as financial scams and speculative bubbles. But what we really found is that there are these young entrepreneurs building a new version of the internet called Web3 on the same technology. And it's this new version of the internet that isn't owned by big tech. And what we found were ambitious, idealistic young coders and builders who sort of believe in the promise of this decentralized internet. And so we focused on that and we found it really interesting and a side of the story that we think hasn't been told before.
And as far as kind of the story that it evolves around, it's this really cool crypto startup school, A16Z, and they get around 8,000 applications, which is insane. And only 26 get accepted into this program. Out of, I guess, the 26 that they accepted, you kind of, I guess, narrowed down to three different specific companies. What was the process for the two of you in kind of making that selection?
Well, we had to do it pretty quickly because we only had 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get the ball rolling there. It was really important for us as being kind of crypto outsiders to be able to fully understand what it was that the people we were going to be filming with actually did. Some of the companies are a little bit more complicated to understand than others. And for us, not being crypto insiders, but being cultural anthropologists in training and with our background, we really wanted to dig into the personal stories of these co-founders and tell their journey over the course of crypto startup school. So it was important for the co-founder teams that we worked with to be kind of open and available to like spend a lot of time with us as we kind of like embedded with them over the course of the 3 months of the school, but also for their companies to really be accessible to a general lay audience because we wanted this film to be accessible to everybody.
And as far as choosing this specific program, was there a reason that you went with A16Z?
Yeah, we were really fortunate to have been invited in to have, kind of access to this space that is not typically open to the public, right? These tech incubators are highly competitive and people are developing like the next big tech companies. And so it's not often like that you are a film team that gets invited in. And so we were invited in and we were very excited to learn about this new space in crypto.
And Zachary, I know that you also did some of the cinematography. It looks also like they kind of did some of the filming as well, that they've kind of incorporated. What was the decision behind the cinematography elements of, kind of utilizing them filming themselves as well as, other pieces that you kind of meshed and added and fit together?
Yeah, well, we couldn't be all places all the time. And so we did kind of a crash course in iPhone cinematography for all of our participants so they could have a really good sense of what would integrate well into the film so that they could film some personal moments when they were traveling or at home or when we were filming with other participants in the film. Our idea was essentially to be embedded with them as much as possible, but it wasn't always possible to be everywhere all the time.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments was actually at the start, and it was with Chris Lee and Ryan Yang from IYK, and they're driving in their car, and then the camera drops, and he goes, "Well, that's going to be inside the documentary." What was the idea behind, I guess, actually keeping that? Were you trying to keep it more of a humanized kind of feel in that element?
Yeah, when we saw that clip, we were like, "Oh, this is great." I mean, we're working with young people like the Gen Z, generation here, and there's a lot of like reflexivity around being in front of the camera and chatting with us. And so we really wanted to kind of leave those moments in as much as we could to acknowledge the process of making the film as well.
Yeah, and I know that the timeline of this is also quite interesting because you've kind of got a before the process of getting accepted to the process of being in this program to then we're seeing kind of the future of what's actually occurred for each individual company. What was the timeline and what were some of the hardest parts of that timeline?
Well, we had the timeline of the school was a 3 month run in Los Angeles. And so we essentially moved down to LA for the better part of 3 months to be with in the school and with our participants as much as possible. And then we checked back in with them about 6 months after, after the school wrapped up and demo day happened. It's pretty intense 3 months of filming and a pretty intense 3 months of work for the teams. And so it was essentially a sprint of a film as opposed to a marathon.
Yeah, I was already stressing myself. I felt like I was in the program. I'm like, my goodness, I'm not ready for the final presentation yet. And it was an interesting structure as well. I mean, they really are kind of being pressured to, showcase their work in such a short period of time, with, of course, the objective is to get this seed capital at the end. One of the elements I loved was that IYK, they're kind of going into this like, well, we already got our funding. We don't need this. Did you actually know kind of that backstory coming into this, or is this something for them specifically that just evolved?
Yeah, I don't think we were necessarily aware when we started filming that some people wouldn't be raising, like that they wouldn't be, going towards demo day and wanting to raise more money. I think, in the film industry, well, you're always raising, which it turns
Hmm.
out is a tagline in the film as well. So that was interesting to us to kind of learn about kind of the behind the scenes of like tech startup culture and how these investment rounds work and all of that. So yeah, it was a process of discovery.
Yeah, a little roller coaster ride. Because I know also with Adam Levy and Ellie Farisi, that whole situation with her family member passing, I mean, that was probably a little complicated as well, since she clearly wasn't able to kind of be a part of the program for that time period to have to go back home. How was it like, kind of running into these different situations and still having to kind of run and gun it?
Yeah, but we were really sad to hear of Ellie's grandmother's passing. And she did have to step away from Los Angeles for a little while, but she really stayed connected to Adam throughout the process, her partner, and we were really appreciative that she did some self-filming along the way so that we could still incorporate her story.
Yeah, no, I mean, it all was kind of almost very organic. It felt like we were kind of really truly living with each of these characters. And even with Brandon Torrey, I just got a sense of this guy's very athletic. My goodness. But his story was just he's always running and doing something active, which, is great when you have time. I felt like they didn't even have enough time to sleep. But his story is quite interesting as well from the rapping side of things, of being this rapper. And I loved how you kind of unfolded that he was more than just this rapper. This is somebody who's worked for Apple. This is somebody who has worked for Google, but on the, coding side of things. I took one coding class and it was the hardest course I've ever taken. So I
Mm.
give coders so much credit. But I guess out of all of the three businesses that you've worked with, was there a specific kind of moment with each of them that was the most memorable?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think, for Brandon in particular, when we were filming this meeting that he was having with Chris Lyons, who is the head of media at A16Z Crypto, um, you know, Brandon was trying to get meetings with artists and record labels to like move his platform, which is essentially like a Web3 version of Spotify. It connects musicians directly with their fans so that they can make a living. And he was trying to take the next step forward. And there's this moment where Chris just says, you know, it's just got to work. You just got to make the platform work. And I think that was a pretty memorable moment because it really encapsulates the work that these, you know, coders are trying to do in this 3 month sprint to demo day. And I think for IYK, you know, they have this investment kind of offer that comes up. And for us, that was a crazy day of filming. You know, we didn't know that was going to happen. It was leading up to demo day. So that was pretty exciting too. And then for Bello, do you have a moment that stands out?
You know, the friendship between Adam and Ellie throughout the entire story, it was just so touching to us. The way that you know, they supported each other throughout the entire process was really amazing, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, they really did share a very close-knit bond, and it was really cool to
Yeah.
see that they relocated to New York and moved in with each other. So that was just a cool evolution to just watch throughout the start and finish of the film. I think even comical elements between Chris and Ryan were some of my favorite. I know that the two of them initially were supposed to go up on stage and present together, and then, you know, Chris says to Ryan that he basically should do it on his own. And one of the comments, because we see Ryan drinking milk, a lot of milk. And Chris says essentially that, you know, you have no nerves because you drink so much dairy. And I was dying. I mean, that
Yeah.
was just such a comical.
We learned this weekend that Ryan actually has a spreadsheet going where he has categorized and ranked every ice cream place that he's ever eaten at as an adult, at least.
Oh
The,
my gosh.
the guy likes
That
his
could be a new
dairy, and
document. That
yeah,
should be a new documentary
100%.
spinoff,
I
I
was like
think.
taking notes.
And I love how you ended as well with them in Marfa, Texas. I've been there. It's beautiful. The Prada installation in the middle of nowhere is so iconic, and just kind of bringing the art world and their company together really showcased, you know, how these companies can really start with something very simplistic in mind and then just branch out in so many different directions. And that evolution was really cool to watch. I mean, all three of them were really just unique and different. And just want to end here by saying congratulations. I know we're at our 15 minutes, but really excited for your premiere tonight at AMDOCS Film Festival and excited to see what everyone has to say and hoping that more people will get into crypto and try and jump into this program of 8,000 applications. Maybe this will actually double it to 16,000.
I think it has the potential to. Thank you for taking the time with us and for asking such thoughtful questions.
Yeah, thanks. This
Yes.
was great.
Well, congratulations to you as well. Both of you are already Emmy Award winners, so hopefully we'll continue to add more.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. Take care.